Hello and welcome back to this tutorial. In our previous video, we learned how to clean up our data so that we have the appropriate data that we would want to analyze. Okay, we learned how to seek for null data and probably replace it with a default value. We also learned how to replace some particular values with a preferred value, and also we learned how to drop duplicate data. All right. In this video, we are going to learn how to filter our data. Well, we have seen a little bit of that when we learned how to load our data, but we are going more in depth in data filtering. So what is data filtering? Let's say you have a large database or a large data file, a CSV file that has up to hundreds or thousands or millions of data, and you want to filter the data that you need at a particular time. Okay, it's not every time that you want all the data in that file to be displayed for you. So if for any reason you want to use some certain conditions to display certain amount of data or specific data, then you can use some filtering methods or technique to achieve this. So we are going to be filtering based on several conditions. We are going to be filtering based on our normal conditionals that we've used before, and we are going to be combining multiple conditions. We're also going to be filtering based on value, and we are going to be filtering with string methods. Also, we are going to be looking at columns that are null or not null. We're also going to be filtering by rows, indexing our rows, and then we are going to be using the query keyword to filter, the between keywords to filter, and also we are going to be using multiple conditions on our columns and our rows. We could also use lambda functions, that is applying a lambda function on a particular column, and this will help you filter your data. All right. And we can also filter a particular column or a particular row with a condition and include the rest of the column. All right. So, and subsequently, we could start combining all of these conditions in one statement or in one block of code, and this will filter the entire data and give us the exact value we are looking for. Also, we could also sort our data, sort the values of our data, or sort the indexes of our data. Now, without further waste of your time, we are going to dive into our Visual Studio Code and start working with data filtering. So we already have our data frames here, and like we have been doing, we are going to be using our data frame 1. So I would like to rename this to data frame and rename this to df1 so that we can work with it as data frame, as our main data frame. Okay, I'm going to comment out what we have here so that we will not be having multiple outputs on the terminal. So now, looking at our CSV file, we see that we have the ID column, the name column, the city column, and we already did this a bit in one of our videos, but we are going to do it again. So I'm going to create a variable and I'm going to call it filtered, and I'm going to set it to whatever filtering operation we are going to be doing. So I'm going to be changing the operations as we go, and we'll be getting different values. So now we are going to be filtering the age column, and we are going to specify that we want the age where their values are less than or greater than a certain value. So we can be using our conditions. So right now I'm going to type in the data frame that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to enter this in another list, create a list of that data frame. So, and I'm telling Python that go to this data frame, and in this data frame, give me a list of all the age row. Okay, so I'm going to pass in the age row or the age column, and I'll give it the condition. So, and it should be where the age greater than 30. Okay, so let's see whether we have anyone that meets that condition. I think we just have one value. So we removed this when we were practicing how to use null values. So I'm going to pass in some figures there so that they could be part of this conditional. So I'm going to add 56 here, and I'm going to print this. Okay, I'm going to print the filtered, and then I'm going to run this. And now we have all the columns or all the rows where the value of age is greater than 30. Okay, so we could as well change this to city and say that we want where the city is equals, we can say we want Atlanta. So I'm going to type in Atlanta there. Okay, so Now, again, I'm going to print this. So we have two rows here, and we can also try to say that we want the name row where the name is Alice. So I believe we have Alice there. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to run this. So this is basically, okay, so I think we have an error. So we are going to say Alice Johnson, right? So I'm going to pass this Alice Johnson here. So now we have that particular row. So what is happening here is that we are simply using our comparison operators to get our value. Okay, now the next thing we are going to be doing is that we are going to be using multiple comparison operators. All right, so we are going to pass in our data frame again, and we pass it in a list, and then we are going to group the conditions. So the first group is that we want this data frame and index the age column. And what conditions are we looking for in this age column? Where we want the age that is less than 30, right? And outside of this group, I'm going to say and I'm going to pass in another group of condition, and I'm going to pass in the data frame again. We can pass in the city column, and here we can say that we want the city column. And what condition are we looking for in the city column? We want the city column where the value is Atlanta again, or we can say Chicago. So now we are going to have all the rows that has ages less than 30 and where the city is Chicago. So here we have only one row. So here you can see that this row meets the two conditions. So the age is less than 30 and the city is Chicago. So here we can also use another operator, the bitwise operator for OR. So the former AND operator that we use is called a bitwise operator. Okay, so that is what is used to achieve this, not your regular and OR operator that are used in logic. Okay, so here I'm going to pass in the OR operator, and this is going to give me the ones that meet either conditions. So now we can see all the columns where the age is less than 30 is here, and all the column where the city is Chicago is also here, right? So now we are going to be passing another multiple condition, but this time around on the right side we are going to check a different condition altogether. All right, so it's no longer going to be a comparison operator, but on the right hand side we are going to call a string method, right? And this string method, we have already used it before, right? So on the right hand side we can say that we want the data frame, and we are saying please give us a list of the city row. And what do we want for this city row? So we are going to call a string method on this city row, and we have already done this before. We are going to say dot contain. So we are going to open our close our braces, and we are going to pass in a string. So here we have New York, just one New York. So I'm going to pass in that York or new. So I want to get that New York, right? Now this is an AND operator. So it's going to check for the two conditions. So if we print this, well, we have an empty list because none of them meets this condition. So the one that contains York, the age is way above 30. So we are either going to change this operator to the OR operator, and we run this. So now we have the New York and then the ages that are less than 30. Okay, so I hope you now understand how this works. So the next thing we are going to be looking at is that we are going to be looking at a scenario where this condition is false. Okay, so we are going to be looking at a scenario where this condition is false. So we are going to be using the not condition, and this time around we have the bitwise not operator. All right, so we are saying please give us a list of a data frame where the age is not less than 30. Okay, so if we print this now, we have all the places where the age is not less than 30. So you can use this not operator, which is a bitwise operator. Now the next thing we are going to be doing is that we are going to be using some keywords to filter our data. So we are going to be accessing the same age column, and we are going to tell Python that please give us a list of this age column in this data frame. And so we are going to be using the is in method, and we are going to pass in a list of the values that we are looking for. So I'm going to pass in 33 and 41, and then maybe what other value do we have there? I think we have 22. So I'll pass in 22. Oh, we have an error. Okay, it's like we used the wrong keyword. So we are supposed to use is in, not is not. All right. So now we are going to run that again, and we have all the rows that contain these values printed for us. All right. So you can play around with this. We can say that we want the city where their values are. We can pass in a list of string. So we can say we want Chicago, and we also want New York. Okay, so if we run this, we have that. Okay, so the next items you're going to be looking at are the is and is not null keywords or methods. So we are going to pass in again our data frame, and we want a list of the age row that is null. So we are going to use this method. So, and if we run this, we are going to get an empty list because all the age rows are currently filled up. So I just removed one value and I saved, and I'm going to run this. So we can see now that we have one value, that is one row that is empty. Now I'm going to change this to not NA. So I'm going to change that, and I'm going to print this. So we have those other rows that are not null. So the next one we are going to be using to filter our data, we have used that before, but we are going to be filtering our rows, and we are going to be using the lock and the iLock keywords. So I can say that I want this to give me so I'm going to say that I want to index the row of, well, from 0 to 6. So like we already know, this will print from index 0 to index 5. So now we see from index 0 to index 5. All right. So we can as well change this and say that we want to get row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and just the list of rows that we want. So I can say I want row 1, row 4, row 5. And so I'm going to set this as a list and then pass in the list that I'm looking for. So now if we print this, we have row 1, row 4, of course, and row 5. So we know how these indexes increase. So this is like this because we have this one as ID for the index 2, right? So I'm going to change this to 2, and I'm going to save this. So if I run this again, I think we should have the correct data. So you can see now the first one is index 0, then index 1, and the rest of them. So the next thing we're going to be doing is that we are going to be using the query method to access a whole list of conditions, right? So, and how do we achieve that? We are just going to write the query method, and we are going to pass in the query as a string. So I'm going to say I want the age that is greater than 20, right? And city that is equals Chicago. So you just use this query method and you filter this with just a normal, you enter your query just as a string. So if we run this, okay, so you can see now that we have an error, Chicago is not defined. So that is because this Chicago now is here as a string. All right. So, and remember this is an integer, so it won't give us problem. So I'm going to insert this. I'm going to enclose this in single quote so that Python will see this as a string. So if I run this again, we have all that. So if I use the OR operator, we have, well, the two conditions. So another keyword we are going to be looking at is the between keyword, and it is going to give us the ones that has the value between a certain range. So again, we are setting our data frame, and we are going to say that, so we want this to return the data frame of the list of the age column, and we want the value that is between, so we write dot between, and then we enter the age that we want. So we want between the age of 22 to 43. Sorry. So we want between the age of 22 to 43. So every age that is between that range will be printed for us. Okay. So we can also use the lambda function on our data frame, and Python will return the list of data in that data frame that meets that condition in the lambda function. Okay, so how do we achieve that? So we want a data frame of this data frame, and we want the age column. On this age column, we are going to apply a function. And what function do we want to apply? We want to apply a lambda function. Remember, you can also use your normal function. So, but I'm going to write a lambda function directly in here. So I'm going to say lambda x, and I'm going to write my colon. So I want x to be greater than 30, right? So we are simply saying that we want all the values that in age column that is greater than 30. So if we print this, so we have all the age column that their value is greater than 30. So the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to apply a filter on a particular row and print some certain columns that we want and skip the ones we do not want. Okay, so here we can say that we want a data frame of this data frame, and we want the age row that is greater than 20, right? But we don't want all the columns to be printed. We want only the ID column and the age column to be printed. So it's going to print only ID and age, right? So we are going to skip the city and the name column. So we are going to enclose this, our list here, so that this is going to be another list altogether. So we now run this, and we have only these two columns printed for us. So the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to combine a lot of these things in one variable, and it's going to perform all the filtering for us. So for the sake of time, I'm going to just paste the code here, and I will explain it a bit. All right. So what are we doing here? So we are saying that we want a data frame to be returned, and we are checking the age variable, the age row, and the first condition we are checking is that the age should be greater than 25, and then the age should be less than the mean, right? So we defined the mean here. So I'm going to remove this. This is actually where we define the mean. So the thing we are doing is that we define the mean here, and we got the mean of the age row. And here we are saying we want a data frame to be returned, and the first thing we want is that the age should be greater than 25, and that the age should be less than the mean. And we also want to go to the row column at the same time and say that we want the name column to get the names that contains the letter A, and we don't mind about the case. Or we want to get the name that starts with S. So it could be A, it could be S. And we are also checking that we don't want the city to be Atlanta. So if we run this, it should give us, well, about 3 rows. So we don't have any Atlanta city, and we have the ages that are greater than 25, and we have these names that contains A, right? So I hope you now understand how you can combine all of this. So I think we'll bring this video to an end, and in our next video we are going to learn how to use the sort value and sort index keywords to filter our data. So thank you so much for watching this video, and see you in the next one.